You know, we don't generally talk about living conditions and different types of living conditions. Before in our society, there was a whole notion of the more space you had, the better off you were doing. Now, the general trend, and this has been a general trend for a long time now, at least a decade, is that less is more. I saw a video of residents living in Japan in cyber-cafés, the Manboo. Residents living in the Manboo. Now, the tight spaces that they live in, it's really tight. You can't really fit a refrigerator or a couch or a king or queen size bed in the Manboo. It's like a cubicle, but even tinier than a cubicle. And it doesn't have any ceiling. So you hear everything. And there's a lot of people living in cyber-cafés in Japan. The general takeaway was that everybody said it was convenient, but it wasn't sustainable. A lot of people liked it because it was isolationist. You could do your own thing. But still they want that contact, that sense of belonging. But what was intriguing was there was a fear. A fear of leaving the Manboo. Going out there into the unknown. Amongst the general society. And not being accepted. I don't think that we truly estimate how many individuals don't feel like they belong in this general society. And the general society is not welcoming of everyone. Let's be honest about this. We have an individual in the United States that drove 200 miles 3 times to a community he didn't know anything about, just to murder people because they weren't like him. So in the general society, there are people who simply just hate other people for very superficial reasons. So the residents of the Manboo, they're spot on when they say that the belonging aspect is really key. But my pushback to this is simple. You gotta get in where you fit in. If you can't create a community in the general society, at least create a community inside the Manboo. You can meet the other residents. You can set up a general day where you can get to know each other. Do a potluck. Have sushi. Something. You have to take gradual and baby steps before you can take leaps and bounds and big, gigantic jumps. Get to know the people in the Manboo. They are Tokyo, but they're not the wider Tokyo. There's a great sense of fear and anxiety amongst the general population. People are isolated because they don't want to be bothered with crazy. Until the general society can rein itself in, I don't blame isolationists. Because a lot of you fuckers are crazy. Batshit crazy. And I wouldn't blame anyone for not wanting to go out there. But remember, fear is a mental trap. So to the residents of the Manboo, you have nothing to fear but fear itself. Don't let your mind trap you in fear. Because that's a lot of time that you wasted. You know, a lot of people are probably in the Manboo and other cyber-cafés because it's cheap too. Rent is expensive in Tokyo. You get a tiny place to begin with, but it's super expensive. So it's convenient and cheap. But you don't want to use it as a crutch because it's not sustainable. As everyone said, living inside of something so tiny as the Manboo, it's not sustainable to the psychological well-being of a human being. So you do the Manboo for maybe at max 6 months to a year. And then you get the fuck out. Because if you stay in longer than a year, you run the risk of having severe isolationist issues. Don't do that to yourself. You're all better than that. Everybody that I heard from in the Manboo, I would be friends with you. These are intelligent individuals. One of the young ladies, she said, I didn't even think I was going to be alive longer than 20. I'm older than 20 and I don't know what to do now because I thought I would be dead. Well, now this is interesting because if you're not dead and you have no purpose or don't know what to do, now you can have all the adventures in the world. You can explore. You can do anything. You're completely free. Don't use the Manboo as a crutch would be my firm, solid message. Don't use it as a crutch. Because I think that's where a lot of residents would do. They would use the Manboo as a crutch. They would say, this is simple. and easy. And I don't have to worry about anything out there. But we know that all psychological human development requires belonging, the sense of belonging. So that's what I said. Even if you don't go out into the general, wider pop, the residents of the Manboo should be friends. At least a couple of you. Sometimes we can feed ourselves a story that's not true. We create it in our minds. And we keep retelling the same old story. And then, without any evidence to challenge whether the story is valid or invalid, we fundamentally think the story is true. Don't use the Manboo as a crutch would be my fundamental takeaway from this. It's a good experience to have, no doubt. I think it's wonderful that Tokyo allows this. But be very careful of using it as a crutch. It's supposed to be a transitionary stage. You go, you stay for 6 months to a year. You work on something inside of yourself. And then you metamorphose and you leave. And new people come. New people transform themselves. And then they go and they leave. The Manboo was never designed for individuals to stay permanently. Tokyo, you tell those individuals that this was not designed for permanency. It was transitionary. That doesn't mean you start kicking people out of the Manboo. No. You just reiterate what its purpose was for. Sometimes you have to tell people what the purpose of something is. And then they stop and they think and they reflect. Everybody in the Manboo can think and reflect. So you share what it was for, the design, the purpose. And you ask the residents, is it still meeting this same purpose of the original intent and design? If so, you can stay. If not, you should go. We can't make you go, but we can encourage you. I think it's a wonderful idea. An absolutely wonderful idea. But all ideas can be abused. And I wouldn't want the residents of the Manboo to abuse the idea unknowingly or knowingly. I kept hearing it was unsustainable. And this is true. But it's not unsustainable just because of how it's structured. It's unsustainable because that wasn't its design. get out there. Fear is in the mind. You have to overcome fear. Residents of the Manboo, you have to overcome fear. Once you overcome fear, you'll belong to anything. I think this is going to be helpful. I really do. It's a wonderful thing that they allow it. But let's not abuse it because it's allowed. Let it serve its purpose. Its purpose is transitory. And I think every resident has to assess when their transition is completed. Some people's transition might take longer than a year. That's okay. It's not ideal, but it's okay. But if you've been in the Manboo for 6 years, you need to get the fuck up out of the Manboo. You're using it as a crutch. And you shouldn't do that to yourself. It has nothing to do with the Manboo. You shouldn't do that to yourself. And the only way to overcome that is to leave. The residents in the Manboo that I heard from and saw, you're already great. You're going to do great things, whether you're in the Manboo or not. Don't use the Manboo as a crutch. Use it as a transition tool. And then go out there and be great. You have something to offer Tokyo. You're residents of the Manboo. Let Tokyo know how great you are.